Good day, everyone, and thank you very much for your time today. Welcome to ALLDATA's Collision Webinar Series. Today we're going to be focusing on the use of OEM information in the estimating process. To begin, my name is Carl Kirschman, and I'll be your host for this webinar. My role at ALLDATA is Collision Program Manager. I've been with ALLDATA for about the last 5 years, and I really enjoy helping collision businesses face the challenges that our industry throws at them on a daily basis. Before ALLDATA, I worked for the Collision Industry Training Organization, ICAR, as their Director of Technology. My passion has always been focused on providing the tools to collision repair shops that put the cars back together so they're on the road and they're safe to put your families in. And when it comes right down to it, a safe repair is a factory correct repair that returns that vehicle to pre-accident conditions. Your customers deserve nothing less. This brings me to our special guest today. Several years ago, I had the privilege of hearing this individual speak at an AASP Illinois meeting, and I was simply blown away by his passion for the collision repair industry. He energized the audience with his insights on running a collision repair business, making sure that cars were properly fixed, and providing the tools to the audience on how to properly document collision repairs. Today, our special guest industry speaker is no other than Mr. Mike Anderson from Collision Advice. Let me share a little bit about Mike Anderson. Mike is on the road over 340 days a year speaking to collision industry groups across North America and beyond. Mike also facilitates numerous 20 groups, conducts seminars, and provides on-site consulting for businesses throughout North America. In April 2014, Mike became the recipient of the Collision Industry Individual Service Award from SCRS. Mike, thank you very much for joining us today. We are honored to have you on the program.
Thank you, Carl. It's my honor to be.
So before we go too far, I'd like to give you a little background about ALLDATA. ALLDATA was founded in 1986 to meet the market demand for OE repair information. Today, ALLDATA serves over 300,000 automotive professionals with 100% OEM information on a daily basis. ALLDATA supports both the mechanical and the collision repair industries with information directly from the vehicle manufacturers. In addition to our online OEM repair information, ALLDATA provides customer support through our library, and customers can contact ALLDATA to obtain information on vehicles going as back as far as 1928. In addition to our library support, ALLDATA added a new feature called Community and our new product called Diagnostic Hotline late last week. Be sure to join us for a community webinar coming up soon. For more information on the community webinar, please be sure to contact us at ALLDATA and we'll get you signed up. So this past winter's kept us pretty busy, and our shops have been full of vehicles. Business owners and managers were more concerned about our cycle times this year because of the sheer volume of work in your shops. You drove your teams to get those cars in and out of your hands as quickly as possible. You measured cycle times in our shops, focused on it in our staff meetings, and judged it, and we were judged on it by outside parties. That age-old saying that time is money has never been more true than in our industry. Let's talk about today's vehicles and some of the challenges that have been taking place over the past decade or so that can affect your business operations. But turning around a vehicle quickly doesn't mean that we are repairing the vehicle back to pre-accident condition. As an industry, we overlook items in the estimating process that pose a threat to our cycle time, our job profitability, and your customer safety, especially when you're working on today's vehicles. So let's take a look at this vehicle, for example. So let's say this vehicle comes into your shop for an estimate. It's related to front-end damage to the hood and the grill area. You know, it's a basic front-end hit. And as you begin the estimating of the vehicle, you write up the usual parts order for a combination of bumper cover, grill, aftermarket hood, light assemblies, and etc. What you're thinking is a straightforward estimate is about to turn anything but straightforward, and it's going to be very complicated. Okay? So once you get in to tear down this vehicle, you're going to notice that this vehicle has optional equipment that you didn't catch on the initial estimate. Upon closer inspection, you discovered that this vehicle is equipped with a module behind the front bumper. With a bit mounting bracket visible, you need to determine whether you can fix the mounting bracket or get a replacement one. So naturally, we have a supplement to submit, correct? Well, this mounting bracket is fastened behind the front bumper reinforcement. So with no visible damage to the module, we can straighten out the bracket and put the vehicle back together. Or can we? Well, it just so happens that this happened to a shop recently. And with the production manager walking through the shop, he saw the front end of this vehicle torn down, and he started asking the technicians questions, such as what was the module that we were looking at, what was the intended repair procedure, and how we were going to put that back together so that we made sure we knew what we were doing on the vehicle. Okay? And here's what the production manager found. He found that the installation procedure was for an adaptive cruise control laser sensor. Now, the OEM information procedure says not to install the dropped or shocked laser radar sensor. But okay, there's no visible signs of damage to this module. So now what? Well, upon further investigation, the shop went on to find a technical service bulletin from the manufacturer that states the sensor and the bracket are a match set and must be replaced as an assembly. If this sensor is removed from the match bracket, the adjustment may be affected. Okay, so now we have a much larger supplement. And we have just added 2 additional days of this repair. Because the vehicle needs to have adaptive cruise control laser sensor recalibrated using a factory scan tool. So if you have one, that's awesome. If not, you have to take that to the dealership and have that recalibrated. Okay? And finally, when the production manager went in the shop and he started looking at the panels, he found that the exterior panels are high-strength steel on this vehicle. Now, without being able to verify that the parts were high-strength steel that he'd ordered, the shop had an issue. Because in the end, they had to order the OEM parts for this vehicle because of safety concerns. Replacing high-strength steel parts with mild steel parts may have affected the timing of the airbag deployment if the vehicle were to get into another accident. So by now you're probably saying, well, we don't work on that kind of stuff in my shop. You know, we don't see that kind of stuff generally. But I've got news for you, folks. This vehicle's been on the road for 10 years. This is a 2005 Toyota Sienna minivan. So that question I have for all of us on the phone today, and please don't raise your hands, is how many of us perform similar work for your customers? So let's talk about how we can avoid these situations moving forward. So to start off today, I'm going to show you how ALLDATA's estimate integration product, how it works, so you know exactly what you're getting into in each vehicle repair. And then afterwards, Mike Anderson is going to jump in and talk to you about the practical application of OEM information in your shops. See, at ALLDATA, we understand the challenges that your estimators face and look for ways to bring OEM information into the estimating processes without having to look through an overwhelming amount of OEM data. The estimate integration product is the only platform out there that integrates all 3 major estimating systems. It uses the estimates that you write in order to find the OEM information that's relevant for each line item on your estimate. This information can be used by your estimators, production managers, QA personnel, and compliance staff, as well as printed out for your technicians so they have the information in their hands at the time of the repairs taking place. So let's see how this works. For example, we have chosen a VW Touareg today. That's in a shop with quite a bit of damage on it. I'm going to select a vehicle from our list of estimates. After selecting the vehicle to be reviewed, ALLDATA goes to work. We provide you with information to properly repair this vehicle after we search through 33,000 engine-specific vehicles with over 13 million articles to find the information that you need to see. The analysis results display an icon for each set of information available on a line-by-line basis according to your estimate. On this vehicle, our big concern is the damaged B pillar. So the first thing we want to know is, how should this part be removed and how is a new one going to be installed? So we select the service and repair icon, and it takes us to the information that you're looking for. And since we know the damage is to the B-pillar reinforcement, we're going to select B-pillar from our list of B-pillar related information available, which will display the replacement procedure for the entire part. Now this article is then displayed, and we can begin reviewing the documentation. All images can be fully displayed full size, so you can print them off as well. So you can get a really good look at it during the repair process. As we scroll down the page, we notice that the materials required for this procedure are specifically called out by the manufacturer. So we can now add these to the estimate as they are specifically required to repair this vehicle. After printing out the article, we can go back to our estimate grid and locate additional information for this repair. Now, it's been a while since we've worked on this model of vehicle, and we're going to replace the door shell as was damaged in the accident. So we're going to need to know what's involved in doing an R&I on this front door. So again, we're going to select service and repair information from the category and take us directly to the OEM repair information on this front door panel. This information is going to be handy for the technicians as they know exactly where all the hidden screws are and the clips are in the door panel area. ALLDATA also provides you access to items you may have forgotten on the estimate. So on the left side of the screen, ALLDATA's drop-down navigation system quickly allows the estimator to pull up relevant information to review related to this repair. So in this case, we're going to want to see the information on how the window regulator is installed on this vehicle. So we're looking for the window reset procedure after the window regulator is installed. In a number of these instances, this will save us a trip to the dealership. And finally, you can find links to ALLDATA's library support through the collision request form. In the same area, you can find a link to the manufacturer's position statements to reference many of the items that you'll hear about later in this presentation. So I want to absolutely reinforce that you need to know the information is available from the manufacturer and you can access it directly from your estimates. Okay? It's designed to support your estimating processes. ALLDATA's estimate integration product puts the power of OEM information on your desktop. Now, before I turn this over to Mike Anderson, I would like to remind everybody to use the chat windows or the Q&A to enter your questions so that we can get to, so we can make sure that you get your questions answered, okay? So now, without further ado, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Mike Anderson, who's going to walk us through how we really use OEM information in your shop environment. Mike, it's all yours.
Well, Carl, thank you, first of all, to the staff at ALLDATA for allowing me to participate in this webinar. As many of you know that have been in my classes before, whether it was my damage analysis class that I teach on behalf of Axalta, or if you've saw me at an industry function or trade industry, I really believe that we need to focus on safety first. A lot of people do ask me my opinions on parts trader, aftermarket parts, DRP shops versus non-DRP shops, and as many of you know, I generally have an opinion on all of those types of items. But I think at the end of the day, safety should trump everything. And one of the things that I have found through my continued use of ALLDATA is that we don't know what we don't know. There have been numerous occasions when I'm writing estimates, and by the way, I do like to use dual monitors when I'm writing my estimates. So I'll have my estimating graphics up on one monitor, and I'll have ALLDATA up on the other. So for example, I have CCC Mitchell Autotex up on one screen, and I'll have ALLDATA up on the other screen. And I found the ease of use of using ALLDATA where it's integrated or interfaced in with my estimating system makes it very Let me give you some examples of some things that we don't know. I quite often ask people, how many of you have fixed a Toyota since 2010? and most everybody in the room raises their hands. Well, one of the things that you'll see here very clearly that I found through AllData was that AllData says perform the 0-point calibration if any of the following conditions is met. So not 2 out of 3, not 3 out of 4, but if any of these conditions occurs, you must do a 0-point calibration on that Toyota Corolla to put this vehicle back to correct condition so that the airbag will deploy properly. And when you look here at bullet point number 3, it says the vehicle is brought to the workshop for repair after an accident or a collision. Well, it's pretty obvious that anytime someone brings a Toyota to our facilities, it's being brought to our facilities for repair after an accident or collision. And what was very scary to me, or very alarming, or very, I guess, quite of an awareness moment for me, is that not just does Toyota say this, but Toyota says this, Honda says this, Hyundai says this, Kia says this. Now, they may all use some different terms. They may call it, for example, you know, a 0-point calibration Toyota. Honda calls it an occupant classification system reset. You know, Hyundai or Kia, they call it WCS. So bottom line is that we need to make sure that if we get these vehicles into our shops, even if the accident's minor, we need to be doing these types of calibrations so that the airbag will deploy properly. Because bottom line is airbags deploy a lot of times because of the weight of the person that's in the seat. And if we don't go back and recalibrate it after an accident, then the next time it's in an accident, that airbag may or may not deploy based on the weight of the previous person that was in there. And I might like to point out that you have to use a factory scan tool in order to perform a lot of these operations. But again, had I not researched this through AllData, I would not have known it was required. I would not have done a proper repair. Therefore, I would have done an unsafe repair. Let me give you another example of something that I found recently with AllData. Many of you, I hope that all of you, are aware of the fact that you can never weld within 12 inches of any electrical component. Some vehicle manufacturers even say 18 inches. Now, the reason that we can't weld within 12 or 18 inches of an electrical component is because of the fact that the average car battery is 12 volts. The average charging system in a vehicle is designed to handle up to like 14.3 volts of the charging system. Well, when our technicians go to weld and they hook up the ground for their welders, that welder is obviously putting out much more than 12 to 14 volts. And so it's putting out more of a charge or a surge than the system is designed to handle. So therefore, if we have any electrical components that are within 12 to 18 inches of that area where we're welding at, we could be sending more of a power surge through the system than it's designed to handle, and thus it could damage some of the electrical components. So recently I was working on a 2009 Toyota Corolla, and we had to remove the airbag because it was going to be within 12 inches of when we welded a quarter panel on. Well, after we removed the airbag, we also had to remove the headliner, the center pillar trims, and we had to remove the sun visors, etc. But when I went and researched this through AllData, we found out, and if you look in the bottom of the screenshot here, it says, note, if the curtain shield airbag assembly is removed, replace it with a new one. Therefore, I must replace it. Now, one of the things that really kind of irritates me with some insurers is the fact that some insurers will limit, or they actually will put a limit on you that says you can only have so many lines on an estimate, or they penalize you. Well, that really works against what we're trying to do here of a safe repair, because if you don't have something on your estimate, for example, R&I the airbag, then AllData can't go find what Toyota says in regards to the R&I of that airbag. One of the things I see is a lot of times people will say, well, Mike, I don't put R&I the trim panels on my estimate, because if I put R&I the trim panels on my estimate, it's going to be included anyway. But here's the deal. If I don't put on my estimate R&I the center pillar trim or R&I the headliner, then AllData cannot scrub or analyze my estimate to come back and tell me whether that part is reusable or not. Recently, we were working on a Volkswagen, and there was an airbag, little airbag decal that actually, and it wasn't like it was a plastic decal, like not a sticker, but actually a hard plastic that snapped into the front windshield pillar trim, and Volkswagen had a bulletin that when we put in our estimate R&I front A-pillar trim, and then obviously to R&I the headliner, Volkswagen came back through AllData and told us that that part needed to be replaced. Recently, we were working on a Nissan Versa, and we went to remove a Nissan Versa center pillar trim panel, and we analyzed or scrubbed the estimate through AllData. It came back and said that that was a non-reusable part. A lot of other things I see is torque-to-yield fasteners, and a torque-to-yield fastener is a bolt that you torque it to specific specifications, and then you go beyond that so many degrees, and it actually stretches the threads on the bolt, and it causes that to hold. Well, I can only imagine how often shops have R&I'd control arms or suspension components in order to replace a frame rail or an apron or to do some type of unibody repairs, and they didn't research it, and they may have used the old bolts, and that's an unsafe repair. So in this case right here, I had on my estimate R&I the airbag assembly in order to replace the quarter panel, because because I cannot weld within 12 inches, and automatically you will see here that all data scrubbed the estimate or analyzed the estimate. It came back and Toyota told me this part needed to be replaced. Again, had I not done that, I very easily could have R&I'd this, put it back in, and thinking I'm doing a proper repair. Another thing I ran across recently was we were replacing an airbag on a specific vehicle manufacturer. And when we did that, we researched it. I was using an estimating system that said when you replace an airbag, these are the 5 components you must replace. Well, when I researched it through all data, I actually came back and told me there were 7 components I need to replace. And the 2 additional components were that if the airbag deployed, you must replace the sun visors. This is something that the estimating system did not make me aware of. Had I not analyzed or scrubbed my estimate through all data, I would not have known. So those things are a bit concerning to me, that we don't know what we don't know. You know, again, let's look right here, 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee welding. You'll see at the bottom it actually says, caution, all restraint systems should be disabled before beginning repairs, and electronic modules located within 12 inches of any welding should be isolated. Again, that is, they need to be removed from within 12 inches of anywhere we're welding. So not only can I use all data to help me to understand what I need to do a proper repair, I can also use all data to help me to prove or justify some of my not included operations. Here's another example I ran across. We were working on a Lexus recently, and a lot of people think that, you know, kind of old school, you can just use the bleeder valve and you can, you know, open up, turn your heater on, and you can bleed the coolant systems. Well, recently I was in a class with some Toyota and Lexus executives there, and they explained how important it was to use a scan tool to actually initialize a check valve within the coolant system when you go to bleed the coolant system. And one of the things one of the representatives from Toyota and Lexus shared with me was the fact that because you're using a lot of steel and aluminum components together to actually manufacture the coolant system and design the coolant system, that's subject to cross-contamination or galvanic corrosion. So therefore, what we need to do is we cannot have any air pockets of antifreeze in that coolant system, or it could allow the aluminum steel components to actually start to corrode. So therefore, in order to eliminate any air pockets in that coolant system so that we won't end up with some type of corrosion from the aluminum and steel components being used conjunctionally to build these coolant systems, we must initialize a check valve through the use of a scan tool. Again, another example, you don't know what you don't know. Now, one of the other things I like about all data is most every vehicle manufacturer has something in there that says repairs and inspections required after a collision. So again, if you look right here, you'll see a screenshot where Carl was nice enough to capture this for me. Repairs and inspections required after a collision. When I clicked on this, this was how I found out I needed to do the 0-point calibration on a Toyota. Recently, I was working on another vehicle manufacturer's type of vehicle, and I went into their section that said repairs and inspections required after a collision, and it actually stated that I needed to put the seat into its lowest position. I needed to raise the back of the seat all the way forward, and I needed to ensure the back seat pocket was empty. And then it told me to inspect to make sure that the seat belt receptacle was even with the bottom of the seat, or the top of the bottom portion of the seat. And if it wasn't, then that told me the pre-tensioner needed to be replaced. Had I not researched it, I would not have known how to inspect those seat belts as per that vehicle manufacturer. So I would encourage you on every time you write an estimate to review this section in all data that says repairs and inspections required after an accident or a collision. And again, you don't know what you don't know, and certain vehicle manufacturers will have you to inspect things. BMW is one of the ones that comes to mind. Anytime that a wheel is hit on a BMW or the control arm has damage, BMW wants you to replace the steering rack. Why? Because the fact there's a plastic coupling inside the steering rack that could get cracked or damaged. Many of you may be aware of the collapsible steering columns that Ford has in some of their vehicles. Again, this would all fall under that repairs and inspections required after a collision.
Hey, Mike.
Now, yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. I want to make sure that we get some questions in for the end of the presentation. So anybody that's on the phone call today, go ahead and start typing your questions into the Q&A box, and we would love to answer your questions at the end of Mike's presentation. So thank you very much. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, great call. And I'm more than willing to answer any question about any subject someone may have. Now, one of the other values I see with all data is when it comes to the negotiation process or the reimbursement process. Again, I'm not here to discuss whether or not DRPs are good or bad, but at the end of the day, we're all making requests to an insurer or a paying party to say, look, I want you to pay me X to fix this vehicle. Well, a lot of times I've had insurance carriers that will say things like, well, Mike, you're the only one. Mike, nobody else charges me for that. And I got to tell you, it really doesn't matter what anybody else charges for. It really doesn't matter that I'm the only one. Really, I don't want to get involved in those kind of conversations. My choice of words to an insurance appraiser or whoever is paying for the repairs is really, I don't care what anybody else charges for. All I care about is, do you believe, Mr. or Miss Insurance Appraiser, that what I'm asking for is required to put the vehicle back to pre-accident condition? And therefore, the burden falls on me to provide this documentation to prove that it's required. One of the things I see a lot of people do is that they really get caught up in their opinions. Honestly, your opinion doesn't mean jack. The only thing that matters is what you can prove, what you can substantiate, or what you can justify. So the first question you need to really have in order to get reimbursed on a more regular basis while reducing friction is to prove that it's required to put a vehicle back to pre-accident condition. Number two, is what you're asking for included in any other labor operation? Number three, is there a predetermined time in the database? And number four, what is it worth? Let me give you an example. For example, is it required for additional labor to prep a raw Toyota bumper cover to put a vehicle back to pre-accident condition if the bumper is being replaced? The answer is yes. We could easily prove that with a bulletin from AllData that really is actually from Toyota that says it's required. Number two, is prepping the raw bumper cover included in the paint time of the bumper cover or any other labor operation? Well, depending on the estimating system I'm using, CCC Mitchell Autotex, I could go into their estimating systems and print out their P pages or their reference guide, and I could prove that it was not included. So now we move down to the third question, which is there a predetermined time in the database for what you're asking for that we've proved is required? Well, for example, CCC has a predetermined time of 25% of base code time with a maximum of an hour in order to prep a raw bumper cover. Autotex is 20% of base code time with a minimum of 0.3, and Mitchell's 20% of base code time with no minimum or maximum. So therefore, that's my answer, and that's what I should be reimbursed. So I really want to emphasize the value of AllData to prove this first question, which is it required to put the vehicle back to pre-accident condition? So remember, your opinion really doesn't mean jack. The only thing that matters is what you can prove, what you can justify, and what you can substantiate. So how can we prove if something's required? Well, obviously, AllData is going to be my first choice. AllData is going to analyze my estimate, and it's going to come back with documentation that will tell me vehicle manufacturers' position statements, their recommendations or their requirements, things of that nature that I can use to justify what I want to do. I can also have other resources available to me outside of AllData. Maybe we get in touch with a paint manufacturer, like, for example, Axalta, PPG, Sherwin-Williams, and we see if they have any bulletins on things such as finish, sand, and buff, or additional labor required for feather, prime, and block, or additional labor required for prepping a raw Toyota bumper cover. Some of our suppliers, like 3M, Lord Fuser, Ken Industries, they'll have videos online, or maybe, for example, they might have bulletins that they publish that says that certain things are required. Your equipment manufacturers, maybe you're use a select frame machine, or you have a Hunter alignment machine, and you might be able to get information from them proving that things are required. A lot of great resources on the internet. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Kristen Felder's Collision Hub, www.collisionhub.com. Kristen and a great friend of mine, Larry Montanez, have put some really good videos on there that show factual information that things are required. Recently, I was watching a video that Kristen had actually used with a gentleman by the name of Doug Gans from Airbag Solutions, and I was watching this video, and they showed me how they used a specific estimating system that came back and said there were 5 components needed to be replaced if an airbag deployed. Well, what Kristen and Doug Gans showed was that actually on this particular vehicle, which was a Mercedes, there was an airbag pressure sensor in the door, and we actually have to replace the door vapor barrier so that no air leaks in and causes an airbag fault code. So again, some great resources on the internet. We can use the vehicle itself to prove something's required. We might use a scan tool. We've got some great friends that own a company called Collision Diagnostic Services, or the Aztec tool, where we can actually take and hook up a scan tool that actually will pull data out that may even tell you freeze frame data as to when a fault occurred and things of that nature. So bottom line is, all data is our first line of defense, though, to prove that something is required and that it's not our opinion, because proving it's required is really the first step to getting paid. Once we prove something's required, the next step for us would be to prove that whether or not it was included in any other labor time. But before we go to that, let's just look at some examples here. Let's look at what Volkswagen position statement is on solvent blending. Many times people put a quarter panel in and the insurance company wants them to just blend the clear up on the sail panel or along the A-pillar. You know, Volkswagen clearly says solvent blending is not an acceptable method of repair on any Volkswagen vehicle. And you also see here that Volkswagen also has a statement that says we need to remove moldings and not sand up next to them or tape it around any of those, because it could cause a delamination problem. So bottom line is, if I replace a quarter panel or repair a quarter panel, I would legitimately put on my estimate that I'm going to extend clear to the natural breaking point. And if it's a Volkswagen, for example, I have a bulletin that supports that what I'm doing is according to the OEM. Toyota is another manufacturer that says the same thing. Toyota recommends strongly against solvent blending of clear coat, and you must extend clear to the natural breaking point. So again, if we have an insurer, and this isn't to be anti-insurer because I know there's good shops, bad shops, good insurers, and bad insurers, but if, let's say, for example, you did have an insurer that was refusing to reimburse you for the extension of clear to the natural breaking point, then I would take and I would use this bulletin from Volkswagen or Toyota that says that Volkswagen or Toyota says I must extend clear to the natural breaking point. Number two is the extension of that clear included in the repair time or refinish time on the quarter panel? I could go to websites like the DEG. I could use things like the SCRS Guide to Complete Repair Planning, or look in the estimating systems and prove that it's not included with any other labor time. And then is there a time to perform that operation? Well, in some cases with your estimating systems there may be, and if not, then we would just manually submit a time. Okay, let's look at another one here, for example. This is a Fiat. I know a Fiat's not a very common vehicle, but people do work on them occasionally, but this is just to illustrate the point. A lot of times I see shops today that they really are losing money when it comes to seam sealers, double-sided tapes, weld-through primer. I mean, they're still charging the same price today that they charged 3 years ago. And we need to keep in mind that any time fuel prices go up, it's pretty good chance that your seam sealer, weld-through primers, rust-proofing body wax, things of that nature, those prices have gone up as well. But again, we might have that specific insurer that says, you know what, all I'm going to pay you is $12 on this estimate, or $5 or $8, whatever the case may be. Well, one of the things we can do is, if we have the word seam sealer or undercoating or rust proofing on our estimate, all data will scrub or analyze our estimate, and it will come back and tell you specific information that that vehicle manufacturer says that you need to do to properly restore that vehicle back to pre-X condition. One of the things we saw recently was on this Fiat, it actually told us that the approved adhesives or seam sealers are listed below. So now I have a document from that OEM manufacturer that says I need this specific chemical in order to put this vehicle back to pre-X condition. And in order to do that, now it makes it much easier for me to submit an invoice with this specific part number on here because I have OEM data to substantiate or justify it. Another example I'll give you is recently we were replacing a roof on a Volvo in Montana, where they had a lot of hail damage recently. So shout out to anybody out there from Montana. And one of the things that we saw was when we went to replace the roof, all data analyzed our estimate and came back and told us that Volvo said that there were a specific part number of seam sealer we needed to use when we replaced this roof, and there were other 3M part numbers that were not to be used on this vehicle. So now that I have a specific part number, and in this case it actually even gave us a specific quantity and told us we would need about 2 tubes, it made my job a lot easier to go to an insurance company and say, look, Volvo has in their OEM data, through all data, that says I need 2 tubes of this specific part number. Therefore, that increased the chances of me getting reimbursed, and ultimately we did get reimbursed. So again, let's use.
We lost you there real quick. So if you want to call back in, I'll go ahead and continue on with the presentation. So the question Michael's going to ask is it included? Okay. Once you have it approved, you know, is it required to move on and to answer question number 2? So is it included in any other labor operation? Okay. So we can use the estimating systems to prove it's not included in the P pages, the H notes, and the reference pages. Okay. You can also use DEGweb.org website. which is a great resource. If you've not been to it, please go, and if you have a operation you believe needs to have the labor times looked into, submit your question, because that's a great place for that. So we can use the ASA not included charts as well as the estimatescrubber.com website. Okay, and when you can also use the SCRS guide to complete repair planning. Okay, so that's question number 2. So number 3 is, if we determine that, it's proven it's not included, we go to question number 3. So is there a predetermined time and database? Okay, clicks are free. You need to look it up and see if there's information available. Submit the inquiry to degweb.org website to complete the inquiry. And see if there's a predetermined time. And if there's not, then we go to question number 4, which is, how do we determine what it's worth? What it's worth. If there's a time that we need to do it. Now remember that the minimum time is 0.1 hours. Okay? So if there's not a predetermined time for it, okay, how do we determine what it's worth? Well, we can do a time study. Okay? We can provide an invoice for what it's worth. We can also use all data for the mechanical labor times. Again, we can submit a predetermined time to degweb.org. Okay, so, and again, is there an OEM warranty time? And do we have equipment provider suggestions? All those are available to determine what it's worth. So in summary, okay, so safe repair should trump everything. You don't know what you don't know, and providing something is required for the first step to getting paid or reimbursed on an estimate. Okay, so now we're going to pass it over to Q&A. Okay, and let me start off with a couple here. And again, Mike, if you're on the phone, just go ahead and jump back in or call back in so we can get some of these questions answered. Okay. Brad writes in and he says, why are the information categories not labeled on the estimate integration product? And that's a great question, Brad, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. What we have is, if you hover over each one of those icons, there's a little pop-up window that displays the category information. So after a while, you get familiar with what the icons are, and they actually are related to the information that's in all data as well. Okay? So great question. Thank you very much. Another question comes in from Brad, and Brad asks, will all data read manual line entries on an estimate? And the answer is yes. You just need to use industry standard terms like frame rail or standard procedures so that it knows exactly what you're looking for. Okay? We do a word search to line up the line item estimates to the all data information, and we come back with pretty good matches in most cases. And again, we do have support from the library. If you're looking for something, then you're not able to find it. Okay? So the next question is, I've done a trial of all data in the past, but I found it very frustrating to navigate the system and spent so much time trying to figure out what I needed. And at times, I found I could not provide anything, I could not find anything provided by the OE. This question was from Mike. I'm going to go ahead and take it again, Mike, if you're there, just go ahead and jump in. The estimate integration product is what we came up with in order to help people like Destiny find that information, because there's so much information available on a per vehicle basis. Okay, so yes, that information is available in there, but we also have a library for you. If you're not finding anything from the OE, we'll go check the manufacturer website for you at no cost, and we typically get that information back in 30 minutes or less. So thank you very much, Destiny, for your question. Okay, another question. A question from Chris Stirrup. Is there a way to have items that need to be checked if the vehicle is in an accident come up more easily? Sometimes we find it difficult to hunt for keys using key search words. It's not always findable. Can AllData make a direct link for them? Thanks for a great product. Well, I appreciate the compliment, Chris. We try very hard at AllData to make things easier for you to find. And yes, there are ways you can search in the S3500 product, and it comes up with the information very easily. In the case of the AllData Estimate Integration product, anything that's on the line item estimate line will come up as well. We have numerous ways of training for both products as well. So if you're having trouble searching for stuff, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we'd love to go through it with you and make sure that you're getting the most out of your investment. Okay, give me just another question here. There was a question earlier. Is there going to be a summary of our webinar available? And this comes from Robert Lagrada. Yes, we will have a copy of this webinar available for download. After we sign off today, you will receive a link automatically to this webinar information, so you can review it as your leisure. And of course, don't hesitate to contact us with questions about the webinar. We're here to help make sure that everybody receives the information that they need to do those safe repairs. So thank you. So I want to thank Mike Anderson for his time today, and I'm sorry that Mike's presentation got cut off prematurely, but I'm going to tell you, Mike is one heck of a guy, and we want to thank him for his participation today. If you haven't seen his website, I know he's got a new one he's going to be launching next week. It is www.collisionadvice.com, and Mike has some great tools for you to download and to use from his website. It's available for you at no charge. Mike is a great industry advocate, and you can actually contact him through his website. So once again, Mike, thank you so much for your time this morning and all the great information that you had available for our listeners today. Okay? So for all of us here at AllData, I want to say thank you very much for attending today's webinar. For more information on today's topics, please contact us at 877-595-7129 or join us on the web at www.alldata.com/collision. Okay? Thank you so much and have a great day.